My name is Naomi Reyes, but most people just call me Nomi. I'm 33, and last Wednesday at 8:42 p.m., my life slipped off the rails in the quietest way possible. 6 numbers on a cheap paper slip lined up like they had been waiting for me since birth. The jackpot said 52 million. After taxes, the attorney later told me, about $31. If you're watching this, drop a comment with your city. I'm curious who I'm talking to tonight. And before I tell you why I didn't tell a soul about the money, not my parents, not my siblings, not even my best friend. Hit like and subscribe if real stories about loyalty, boundaries, and family wake-up calls are your thing. I promise you, by the end, you'll know exactly why silence was the safest thing I ever chose. Before that night, I lived a spreadsheet life. I was a compliance analyst for a regional freight company in Denver. Lots of SOPs, audits, and emails with subject lines like follow-up on follow-up. My one-bedroom apartment sat on the edge of Lakewood, 3rd floor walk-up, no elevator. Rent due on the 1st, utilities auto-paid on the 15th, coffee pre-ground on Sundays. My Corolla had the clicking sound at exactly 37 mph, and my calendar had color codes that could scare a rainbow. I wasn't miserable. I wasn't happy either. Mostly I was precise. My family story? Think plate of tangled chargers. My dad, Miguel, taught middle school shop until his back gave out. He remarried Elaine, professional decorator, professionally expensive. My mom, Karen, married Robert, an insurance guy who could explain deductibles with the warmth of a freezer. My older sister, Brooke, 37, lives in a glass and brass suburb with a cardiologist husband and 2 kids in La Crosse. She's the one who posts gratitude at golden hour with captions that read like TED Talks. My younger brother, Theo, 28, is brilliant in the way people are brilliant, right before they burn out. 6 app ideas. No tax returns filed on time, a string of borrowed sums that evaporate like mist. Extended family is a study in contrasts. Aunt Gloria, Mom's kid sister, teaches music at a public elementary school. She drives a dented Civic with a sticker that says, "Be kind anyway," keeps basil in a chipped mug on her windowsill, and somehow remembers every birthday with a handwritten card and 2 tea bags taped inside. On Dad's side, there's Aunt Belinda, married into money and allergic to humility. Her son, Nick, is the kind of cousin who always almost wins big at poker and almost pays you back. Money has been a splinter under my skin for years. When Theo needed $4,000 for a move to Austin and promised to Venmo me back the following Friday, I wired it. He moved 2 neighborhoods over and lost his security deposit twice. When Brooke asked for just a bridge of $2,500 for a contractor who insisted on cash, I swiped my card. The bridge is now part of a kitchen island the size of a studio apartment. When Dad's truck needed a new transmission, I did what daughters do and what receipts record. He thanked me, then posted photos from a wine-tasting weekend in Napa 2 weeks later. Elaine in floppy hat, him smiling under string lights. The only person I ever told the whole truth to was my best friend Jordan. We met at 20 in a geology elective. He's a nurse now who knows how to laugh with people without using them up. It's funny. When you live in a family where love and money keep bumping into each other in dark hallways, you learn to tuck your wallet behind your rib cage. I didn't buy lottery tickets to get rich. I bought them to buy 5 minutes of hope. Every Wednesday after work, I stopped at Pete's Quick Mart on Colfax. Faded signs, burnt coffee, a clerk who calls everyone boss. I'd spend $12, sometimes $14 if the day had been especially petty. And last Wednesday, I didn't do a quick pick. I wrote down numbers that meant something. 04 for April, the month Mom taught me to parallel park. 19 for the day of Dad's best mood. 11 for Gloria's choir room. 23 for Jordan's badge number. 32 for the apartment I swore I'd leave. And 08 because I like how round it looks, like a closed loop. At 8:42, sitting cross-legged on my rug with pad thai cooling beside me, I checked the numbers on my phone, then on the TV, then on the lottery app, then on the TV again because I didn't trust an app to narrate my destiny. My hands went hot and cold like someone had turned the weather knob back and forth. No way, I said, once like a prayer and once like a dare. My first real decision was silence. Not performative, not strategic, instinct. I'd read the stories, the sudden cousins, the GoFundMe business plans, the media trucks idling like wolves. I slept maybe 40 minutes that night, the ticket zipped into a freezer bag inside my sugar canister, because criminals break into freezers in movies but never into sugar. The next morning I Googled Anonymous Claim Colorado, Lottery Trust Keep Name Private, How Hide New Car from Nosy Aunt. At 9:03 a.m., I called a law firm I found through a boring blog whose boringness felt like a good sign. Montrose, Chen, and Patel, the receptionist chirped. That afternoon, in a conference room with frosted glass and a fig tree pretending to be a forest, I met Alistair Chen, a state attorney, who had kind eyes and a haircut that said, "I schedule haircuts." He walked me through a plan, a blind trust, a separate LLC for real estate, a financial team with one job, say no for me. The number one mistake winners make, he said, tapping a yellow legal pad, is narrating their win out loud before their plan exists on paper. We built paper. For 2 weeks, I lived double. At work, I answered emails about Q3 corrective actions, while in my other life, I signed documents that used phrases like irrevocable and fiduciary duty. The money landed where it needed to, quietly, under the name of a trust called Starboard Lane, which sounds like a Nancy Myers street, but was really a childhood doodle in the margins of my notebook. And then the question I didn't want rose up anyway. What do I do with family? You know that click you hear when a seatbelt latches? I needed that click in my relationships. Not to trap me, just to keep me from flying through glass. I didn't want to tell and turn into an ATM. I didn't want to hide and harden like a vault. Then a thought slid into place. Find out who they are without the noise of money. I wasn't going to trick anyone. No fake illnesses, no crying wolf. But I wanted to see who would help when help looked inconvenient and unrewarded. Jordan, who is constitutionally honest, said, "This smells like a social experiment that could bite," I said, "or like a smoke alarm." We set ground rules. I'd tell each person one simple truth. They'd believe I'd been laid off due to a facility closure. Our company had in fact announced a consolidation last quarter. It was plausible. I'd asked to borrow $4,200, enough to cover 2 months' rent and Cobra for a short gap. No sob story. No manipulation. Same script, same ask, no pressure. I made a list, 10 names. Mom and Robert, Dad and Elaine, Brooke and Solo, not her husband, Theo, Aunt Gloria, Aunt Belinda, Cousin Nick. And because I wanted to be fair, Grandpa Joe on Mom's side, fixed income, yes, but stubbornly generous. I'd ask only for advice, not cash. I rehearsed with Jordan. Sound tired, not tragic, he said. And if you cry, let it be about dignity, not dollars. I started with Mom. We met at a deli she likes because they carved turkey like it's surgery. I told her straight. The distribution center was closing, I had interviews, and my emergency fund had been nuked by a radiator and a root canal. "Could you loan me $4,200? I'll sign whatever terms you want." Mom squeezed my hand. "Honey, of course we'll help. Let me talk to Robert about what we can move around." This sounded promising until she added, "And maybe you can pause streaming services. Do you really need 3? I left with a hug and a "we'll see." Dad picked a coffee shop with reclaimed wood tables and reclaimed eye contact. He nodded through my speech, then slid into lecture mode. 6 months' expenses, Naomi, I taught you this. You're smart. You plan. I did plan, I said. Life charged interest. He spoke about personal responsibility while Elaine texted someone about a backsplash. He ended with, "I can't undermine our retirement timeline, but I'll help you network," which is generous in LinkedIn, not in rent. Brooke made lattes in her kitchen that smells like eucalyptus and achievement. She clasped my hands. "I'm so proud of you for asking. Not everyone can admit they need help. Then, we just paid for Cooper's travel team and the quartz counters, and Evan's CME conferences in Tahoe. Could I do $300 now and maybe revisit next quarter?" She did offer her guest room, currently a home gym. "We just need to move the Peloton." Theo responded to my long text with, "Ugh, brutal. Can I Kashapi 40 Friday?" He ghosted after that. Aunt Belinda told me it was a season of pruning for you, and suggested I sell my car and embrace minimalism, which is rich coming from a woman whose Christmas tree has a chandelier. Cousin Nick said he wished he could help, but he'd tied up funds in a hot opportunity. He asked if I still had that savings account from high school. Grandpa Joe, bless him, offered 20 in cash and a story about the Dust Bowl. He said, "People show up in 2 seasons, when you're celebrated and when you're cornered. Watch who brings a chair to each." 2 days later, I knocked on Aunt Gloria's apartment door with my carefully rehearsed ask. She hugged me like prayers feel. I told her everything in 2 paragraphs. She nodded slow, the way she listens to second graders learning a new scale. "I can do $2,000, she said, already pulling a checkbook from a drawer that also held safety pins and a peppermint. "And if you need to cut expenses, the futon is yours. I'll make cinnamon tea." "Gloria," I said, "that's too much." "Family is good at the wrong kind of math," she said. "They count what leaves their hands and forget what lands in your heart. Let me do the right math." I cried then, real and messy, right onto her cardigan. That night, Jordan came over with pad thai and a face that said, "I told you so, and I love you anyway, all at once." "So?" he asked. "So Gloria," I said. "Of course, Gloria." The experiment didn't blow up my family. It just took the filter off. By week's end, I had a ledger of responses that read like a map. Concern without commitment, lectures without loans, offers of couches that came with conditions, and 1 act of quiet generosity from the person with the least to spare. I called Alistair and said, "I know what I'm doing." We set up the Willow Street Trust for 1 beneficiary, Gloria. It would cover her medical costs, a modest monthly stipend, and a little joyline item labeled music and travel, because she once told me her dream was to visit Nashville and hear a songwriter play a song that wasn't famous yet. I didn't tell her that part. Surprises deserve their own timing. But before the lawyers and the signatures, I owed her the truth. I invited her over. I made black beans the way she taught me. Onions first till sweet, garlic last so it doesn't burn, lime at the end like a tiny trumpet. After dinner, I said, "I need to say something I should have said before I walked into your kitchen with my hands open." She cocked her head. I took a breath that felt like stepping off a ledge into a lake. "I won the lottery 3 weeks ago. 31 million after taxes. I set up protections, I'm safe, and I'm telling you, because you treated me like a person when everyone else treated me like a problem." She didn't gasp. She didn't ask for anything. She reached across the table and put her palm over my knuckles. "I have watched you be careful your whole life," she said. "I'm glad you get to be generous now. Start with yourself." The following Sunday, I invited the family to my apartment, not to reveal the win. I wasn't ready to donate my piece, but to close the loop on the story they had heard in fragments. "Thank you for coming," I said, when they were all inside my living room, which suddenly felt 3 sizes too small for so much opinion. "I found work, contract role, better pay, benefits soon." True enough. My nonprofit paperwork listed me as executive director with a reasonable salary. I'll be fine. Relief rippled like air conditioning kicking on. Dad said something about resilience. Elaine complimented my thrifted lamp. Brooke offered the Peloton room again. Theo asked if I could spot him until Friday. I held up a hand. "I want to say something before we all slip into comfortable stories. When I asked for help, I wasn't testing you to trick you. I was hoping to meet the version of you that meets me halfway." Brooke flushed. Dad bristled. Mom's eyes glossed. I kept my tone even. "I've covered a lot over the years quietly. I'm not keeping a scorecard. I'm saying the pattern is not sustainable. Going forward, I won't be lending money. I'll be giving what I choose to give where I see it's received with responsibility and love. That might look like a ride to a doctor appointment. It might look like a no. It'll look like boundaries." "So you're punishing us," Elaine said. "No," I said. "I'm finally protecting me." They filed out with hugs that felt like negotiations. Gloria stayed and helped me wash mugs. "You were kind and clear," she said, which in our family is practically a revolution. The next month, the Willow Street Trust started. I sat with Gloria at a small office where a very patient man explained the stipend. She kept saying, "Are you sure?" Like yes could run out if she asked too often. We toured a sunny little bungalow with a porch swing 2 bus lines from her school. She cried when she saw the south window. "Perfect for Basil," she whispered. Meanwhile, I tendered my resignation at the freight company and filed articles of incorporation for a nonprofit called Quiet Hands, named for what patients ask for in ICU rooms, and what I wanted to offer people who fall through family cracks. Home safety fixes, rides, bills negotiated, a chair pulled up to their corner, We started small. Vouchers for seniors whose utility shut-off notices always arrived on Fridays. Doorway ramps installed by a guy named Marco who refuses to let anyone pay full retail. Grocery runs in snowstorms. Jordan ran outreach on his days off with the kind of energy coffee pretends to have. On a Tuesday in November, I sat on Gloria's new porch after choir practice. She sipped cinnamon tea and told me about a second grader who sang wrong notes bravely and then the right ones braver. "It's strange," I said, watching the blue drain out of the sky, "how quiet it all is. I thought money would make noise." "Noise is usually what happens when we try to be seen," she said. "You don't need that anymore." My relationship with the rest of the family didn't implode. It thinned out like a crowd after fireworks. We still do birthdays. I still send flowers when Brooke posts hospital selfies with captions about remembering what matters. When Dad had a minor heart scare and the hospital billing office did their predatory dance, an anonymous fund covered the gap. When Nick finally went to rehab for gambling, a scholarship appeared. They never traced it. I never wanted them to. More than once, I almost told the truth. On nights when Brooke called crying about a contractor or when Theo texted 3 paragraphs about a can't-miss startup. I'd bring my thumb to the mic button and then remember the silence after my ask. Silence, it turns out, can keep things holy. A year in, my life doesn't look like a rap video. It looks like a dinner table with 4 plates and too much laughter. It looks like a spreadsheet that tracks ramp installations and medication copays instead of rent and late fees. It looks like me, finally, with room to be generous without getting erased. People think money changes people. Sometimes, mostly, it reveals them. It showed me a mother who loves with advice first and Venmo later, a father who confuses lectures with love, a sister who can perform compassion in porcelain kitchens, a brother who thinks tomorrow is a pocket that never has holes. It also showed me a woman who will split her last grapefruit and call it abundance. I used to believe love meant never letting the ball drop. Now I know love is passing the ball to people who will carry it without asking for your shoes too. If you've ever wondered whether the people around you love you or the help you provide, try withdrawing the help and offering yourself instead. Watch who stays. Watch who brings a chair when you're cornered. If this hit close to home, drop a comment with the toughest boundary you've had to set and what happened after. Hit like and subscribe if you want more stories that feel like sitting on a porch with someone who won't lie to you. And remember, the value of your life isn't measured by what leaves your hands. It's measured by what you keep safe inside and who you invite to see it.